These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. Being buried alive accidentally occurred so often that people invented safety coffins. In the Middle Ages, people used to eat mummies for medical purposes. It's the main reason we don't have a lot of mummies left today. In the United States, there are more vacant homes than homeless people. Did you know that the actress Glenn Close was raised in a cult? The Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland used to have real skeletons as props. In 1976, a TV crew realized one of the hanging bodies in the Laugh in the Dark ride was indeed a real body by accidentally breaking it. Women in the 18th century used lead as makeup. This is the first chainsaw. It was invented by 2 Scottish doctors. And it was invented for childbirth. Yeah, there's a lot more. Like for part 4.
You might not think it, but this is the deadliest cat on the planet. It's called the African black-footed cat, and it stands at just 8 to 10 inches tall, weighs between 2 and 4 pounds, which is roughly 200 times less than your typical lion. But don't be fooled, because this thing is deadly. It captures more prey in one single night than a leopard does in 6 months. They can walk up to 20 miles a night in search of prey, and have an accelerated metabolism which makes them hunt almost non-stop. For perspective, lions succeed in catching their prey roughly 20 to 25% of the time. This little bastard has a success rate of a whopping 60%. That is the highest hit rate of any wild cat, making it the deadliest on Earth.
Here's 3 animals you're glad that are extinct. This is the Gigantopithecus, measured to be 10 feet tall, and its teeth were named dragon teeth. The saber-toothed tiger had teeth that could grow over 8 inches, and the tigers themselves could weigh over 400 kilograms. And finally, the megalodon was a monster that roamed the sea. It's known as the biggest fish to ever live, and its diet would consist of dolphins, seals, and whales.
So this man over here decided to transition into a woman so that he can avoid going to a man's prison. If for some reason you don't think this is messed up, I don't know what to tell you. In 2016 and 2019, 31-year-old Adam Graham, who was first a man, attacked and armed 2 women. Adam claimed to have gender issues since the age of 4, but he only started transitioning in 2020 after he was charged. He changed his name from Adam to Isla, and now he's serving time in a women's prison in Scotland. So you're telling me that a man who was charged and found guilty of the RAPE of 2 women was put in a facility filled with women? To me, it's just alarming how no one thought that this would be a safety concern for a woman, especially because of what he was charged with. Someone make it make sense.
What every country in the world exports the most of, Part 1. United States, aircraft. Germany, drugs. Switzerland, blood. Brazil, coffee. China, computers.
Things humans were never meant to see. Okay, firstly, we've all seen alligators poke their head out of water, and it's pretty terrifying when they do this. However, this is what their body looks like underneath the water. And this honestly makes alligators seem a lot less scary. This is what water looks like on fire. How is this even possible? Okay, next, in World War II, the US made inflatable tanks that were used as decoys in the war. This is genius. We were not meant to see this. This man threw boiling water off his balcony and it instantly turned to snow. And this is a super rare sheepfish. It's a snail that has the head of a sheep and the body of a plant.
Can you imagine entering a home for a showing and finding the homeowners dead? Well, that's exactly what happened to billionaire Honey and Barry Sherman. This December is going to be 7 years since their gruesome unaliving, and police still don't have any idea who did this. What's crazy is that they were found by their realtor with their clients inside their Toronto mansion with their necks tied with belts beside their pool. Barry Sherman was the founder of Apotex, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. world. The way Barry and his wife exited this world was very cruel, and a lot of people actually think that their son had something to do with this. There's a handful of suspicious people in this case, but many think that it was their son because this person was very close to them and knew the ins and outs of their mansion very, very well. Their kids actually inherited around $3 billion each, which is crazy. I feel like this case has not been talked about the way it should be, and considering how much they did for the community and all the donations that they've contributed to is wild. Since this case has been open for several years and there's been no new evidence or suspects, people think that the government has something to do with their deaths. And not to mention, their mansion, aka the crime scene, was demolished immediately at the request of their own kids. That's not suspicious at all. Also, this case happened 10 minutes from where I live, so that's crazy. But if you guys want to check it out and learn more about this case and the new details and the new updates, make sure to check out my video on my YouTube channel.
Probably this. This is 51. Look, so this is 50. This is it. And yeah, nobody knows, but it's for sale. Look.
This is the creepy story about Help Me. A teenage girl named Kathy was babysitting two kids. There was a 7-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. Their parents went out to see a movie and they wouldn't be home till late. Around 9 o'clock that night, the phone rang. Kathy answered the phone and heard a creepy voice saying, "Help me, for heaven's sake, help me." She immediately hung up and thought it was a prank. Then 30 minutes later, the phone rang again with the same voice saying, "Help me, somebody please help me." This time Kathy got scared. The children asked who it was, but she told them not to worry, it was fine. Another 30 minutes went by, and the phone rang one more time. The voice sounded scared and desperate this time, saying, "Help me, for heaven's sake, will somebody help me?" Then the phone went dead. Then seconds later, there was a knock at the front door, and she heard the same voice saying, help me," over and over again. Kathy says she's gonna let him in because he needs help. When the parents arrived home that night, they went into the house. Kathy and their children were laying dead in the living room with all their arms and legs cut off.
Facts that sound fake but are actually true, part 1. You can actually live the rest of your life without any food. France was still executing people with a guillotine when the first Star Wars movie came out. There are more trees on Earth than there are stars in our galaxy. Shakespeare invented the name Jessica. In Jupiter, it rains diamonds. I have to move to Jupiter right now.
Random facts that will blow your mind, part 17. New York was once called New Amsterdam. The word goodbye came from God be with you. Mexico has the most external debt worldwide. Recycling a 3-foot stack of newspaper can save one tree.
Urban legends you wish you never knew, part 3. The Catman. This isn't as innocent as it sounds. This urban legend comes from a small suburb in Norway. Legend has it that in the nearest forest, the Catman lived by himself in a hut that he built himself. You'd know if you got close to his hut because he had placed dead cats on stakes all around his area. Some of the cats you would even see pinned on the trees. He supposedly snuck into neighborhoods of the nearby towns between 2 or 3 in the morning, and he would hunt down cats, strip their skin off, eat their flesh, and sell their skin. And he would keep some of the cats to decorate his place. It is said that if you met him, you would instantly freeze from a feeling of impending doom and go insane. Because after eating all these cats, he no longer had human eyes, but instead cat eyes. Needless to say, there were several aborted missions to locate his hut in the woods, but when people get to the edge of his field, that makes them wanna puke from fear, and they run away.
Here are some events that will happen by the year 2050. The sad truth is, by the year 2050, half of the world's population will not have access to clean drinking water. Half of the Amazon rainforest will be deforested, leaving many animals without any shelter at all.
In 2025, SpaceX is sending their first cargo ship to Mars, and if all goes well, they are sending their first humans to Mars by the year 2050. So who knows, maybe by 2050 we will have the first civilization on Mars. Animals are getting more dangerous and more powerful every year. Animals are evolving every day, becoming more of a threat to society. I'm not talking about your regular house pet, I'm talking about wild animals. For instance, in 2020, we found the first flying spider, your worst nightmare. You thought the coronavirus was bad? Well, by 2050, there could be more deadly viruses affecting the world than ever before. You better keep that face mask. The population will be 9.6 billion.
All digital data in the world will get deleted in 2033, and this guy from the year 2062 just told us how. Yes, he claims to be a time traveler. They even connected him to a lie detector, and it all checked out as true. So Spotify reached out to sponsor this video to let us get to the bottom of this. His name is Peter Reuter, who says in November of 2022, patient 0 of a deadly virus started infection at JFK Airport. And in October 2023, a new variant of the virus known as Pegasus was spread to infect the entire world. Dr. Eliza Knight was assigned to Peter's case, who tells her the end of the world is closer than we think. According to him, kids being born now will be known as the IP, or interpandemic generation, who will grow up glued to a screen and fearing social contact. In 2031, we finally establish our first colony on Mars, but that's nothing compared to the discovery we make there 11 years later. On March 30th, 2033, the world will experience the Great Deletion, in which an AI tasked with cleaning up junk files ends up deleting literally everything. Just imagine waking up one day with no email, no social media, your entire digital footprint is completely erased. Then, in August 2042, that colony on Mars uncovers an ancient city buried under the Martian surface, which apparently teaches us how to time travel. Ultimately, October 2053 is when the entire world crumbles for good. But then, the unexpected happens. Dr. Knight wakes up in the year 2012, where she's now the patient, and a familiar doctor is interviewing her about her mental health, which is the plot of Case 63, a Spotify original audio series which is oddly close to reality. Season 2 just dropped, so you can binge both seasons now and maybe even predict what's going to happen in our future.
3 disturbing movies you've probably never seen. This first movie is insane. It's called Flowers in the Attic, and it's about 4 siblings after their father passes away. Their mom takes them to their grandma's mansion, but things quickly go wrong, because their grandma locks them in the attic and won't let them leave. Eventually, they also find out their mom is hiding a terrifying secret, and because the 4 of them are growing up without ever seeing anyone else, the relationship between the siblings starts to get unusual. Next, this movie has an insane plot twist. The autopsy of Jane Doe. The body of an unknown woman is found in the coroner and his son have to autopsy it. But soon they realize this woman is not normal. Basically, her internal organs are all messed up, but on the outside she looks fine. Then they find these strange symbols written inside her body. You'll never guess the plot twist. Last up, we have May. May is an outcast and the only friend she has is a doll named Susie. But one day this doll breaks and that leads her to do some pretty crazy things, because now she's determined to make herself a new friend. Follow for more.
Phone numbers you should never call, Part 7. This is the first phone number. It belonged to the Derry Police Department. When you call this number, a policeman will reply and tell you about some kids that went missing. But then Pennywise kills him and leaves you a disturbing message. This is the second phone number. When you call this number, a young woman will reply and with a desperate voice will cry, "Mommy, I'm going to die. I'm at the club. You need to come and get me." We don't know where it comes from, but it is said that this woman was kidnapped and killed by an unknown murderer.
The most historic case that has ever taken place in DC history is probably one that you have never even heard of. One of the scariest cases that I've read in a long time. This is the very true story of the Freeway Phantom. Now, in the 1970s, there was a man in Washington, D.C. who people named the Freeway Phantom because he had one very specific MO. He was only going after young black girls and women. He was abducting them off the street and then their bodies would be found here, left and positioned right at the freeway. Actually, in the investigation, they profiled him as someone who was a textbook psychopath. He was repeatedly calling the families after he had abducted these girls, and he was breathing into the phone, and then he would say something like, "I just killed your daughter," and then hang up. Even left a handwritten note with the body of one of his victims. If you want the full story on this, we are going to cover it on the show. Mysteriously, in the 90s, all the records on the case vanished.
These are the creepiest unsolved photo mysteries. The Baltic Sea anomaly is known for being one of the most famous underwater mysteries on Earth. This sonar image from 2011 shows a large structure located at the bottom of the ocean. And if you're a Star Wars fan, it may look a little familiar to you. Many people believe that it could be a sunken UFO, or an ancient man-made structure that was lost to history. That, or Han Solo decided to move there and live his life in peace. Next, in 2016, a woman named Linda sent Belfast Live a disturbing photo that was taken from the year 1990. The photo shows a group of women in a factory with their arms crossed. One of these women was Linda's grandmother, Ellen Donnelly, and if you look closely at her shoulder, you can see a disembodied hand hovering over her. The photo quickly spread through the media, even making it to Snopes where they were unable to debunk it, so always look over your shoulder. And finally, many people believe that the Madonna, or the White Lady, was caught on camera back in 1991 at the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. On this night, Judy Huff Fells decided to take a stroll in one of the most haunted cemeteries in America, along with the local Ghost Research Society, when they felt an odd presence nearby. And when she took out her infrared camera and snapped a photo, she could see a woman sitting on a stone. And this is why you shouldn't wander around a cemetery at night.
Chilling last photos of people before they went missing, Part 1. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank was a German backpacker travelling in Bulgaria in July 2014. While there, he supposedly took part in an altercation that resulted in a busted eardrum. His family and friends were worried after receiving cryptic texts from him saying he was being followed by 4 men. This image right here is from security camera footage which shows Lars sprinting out of the airport without his luggage. And the chilling last photo before he went missing is this one right here. After supposedly hopping a fence and running into the woods, Lars has not been seen since.
Welcome to Creep Time on TikTok with Silas Dean. Today we are covering the disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura is a 21-year-old college student studying nursing in Massachusetts in the year 2004. On February 9th, she sends an email to school letting them know she'll be gone for a week due to a family death. But no one in her family had died. Records that were obtained from her computer would show an earlier search on MapQuest for directions to Burlington, Vermont. At 3:40 p.m. on the same day, she would withdraw all of her money from a local ATM. At around 4 or 5 p.m., she takes off on this trip, having told no one, and just starts traveling up Interstate 91 North. Around 7:27 p.m., Maura's car is crashed on a sharp, snowy turn along Route 112 in New Hampshire, and a neighbor would call the police. Another driver who's returning home also passes her and offers to call for help. She pleads with him not to and insists that she's already called AAA, but phone records would later show that she never called AAA that night. The man carries on home, but decides to call 911 anyway. Between 7:27 and the police arriving at 7:46, Maura is gone. The car is found completely abandoned, and she's taken her cell phone and her credit cards, none of which have ever shown a record of being used since that night. That driver would be the last verified sighting of Maura. A witness would later come forward to report seeing a young person dressed in dark clothing traveling very quickly by foot around 8:30 p.m., roughly 4 to 5 miles up Route 112 on the same night. But it was never confirmed if this was Maura. It's been over 17 years since the disappearance, and the case has never been solved.
These are some dirty history facts that I guarantee you were never taught. And if you ever told your history teacher any of these, they'd definitely go, excuse me, what the fuck? The first toy was invented by Cleopatra. However, to actually make it work, she put angry bees inside of it. You know, so they would go... I can't lie, don't think that would pass Dragon's Den. Next up, the ancient Romans used stale urine as mouthwash. Cool, but why? We actually know that Benjamin Franklin had a MILF fetish. A letter that he wrote back in the day was actually found and confirmed this. However, the detail he went into within this letter, we're not gonna go there. There is a sign in Pompeii next to the fountain that translates to "please don't shit in the fountain." All I can think is how many times did that have to happen for a sign to become necessary? And finally, cornflakes were invented to stop what rhymes with fastitation. It was believed that doing this to yourself was a big no-no. They thought stale foods helped fight this urge. Thus, cornflakes. Anywho. Elon!
3 disturbing movies on Netflix you need to watch. This first movie is insane. It's called Secret Obsession, and it's about a woman named Jennifer who gets in a car accident and loses all her memories. In the hospital, a man shows up claiming that he's her husband, but as soon as they go home, Jennifer realizes something is wrong, because at night all the doors are locked so she can't leave, and the pictures of them together are photoshopped. So who's this man pretending to be her husband? And what really happened to her? Next up, there's no other movie like this. It's called Annihilation. Lena is a biologist who joins a secret mission into an area called the Shimmer. A mysterious place that mutates the DNA of everything inside it. Everyone who's ever went in there disappeared, except her husband, who went missing for a year then randomly showed up. But something is wrong with him, and Lena is determined to go into the Shimmer herself and find out the truth. Last up, we have Apostle. This is about a man who finds out his sister is being held hostage at a religious cult. So he goes to the island where the cult is to try to rescue her, but he would never expect what he would find there. Follow for more.
Did you know the dark truth behind The Wizard of Oz? The original actor who played the Tin Man had to quit filming after only 10 days because he was dying from aluminum poisoning. The makeup they were using for the Tin Man was actually real aluminum, which absorbed through his skin and into his lungs. He then suffered with respiratory problems for the rest of his life. During the poppy field scene, the falling snow looks beautiful, but in reality, the cast was actually being dusted and poisoned. The snow that was used in this scene was actually asbestos, a known carcinogen. The lion costume that the Cowardly Lion wears was made out of a real lion hide, which was so hot and heavy that he would often faint from the heat. In this scene, the Wicked Witch of the West was supposed to disappear into a trapdoor underneath the set as flames shot up from beneath. When the flames erupted too soon, the actress's hat and broom caught on fire. She suffered second and third degree burns all over her body and spent 6 weeks in the hospital. The filming process was a nightmare for Judy Garland, who played Dorothy. They required her to lose 12 pounds on a diet that consisted of pills and very little food. And studio executives would refer to her as the fat little pig with pigtails behind her back. And she was also given adrenaline shots so that she could stay awake, sometimes up to 72 hours in a row. And the actor who played the Scarecrow was left with permanent scars all over his face from the makeup and prosthetics he had to wear. And finally, the dog Toto actually made more money daily than the Munchkin actors made for the entire movie.
Whatever you do, do not look into the most disturbing case in history. Back in 2014, 2 young girls went hiking in Panama. Now, they were right out in the wilderness, camping, hiking up these big mountains. I mean, I don't know why you go to Panama to do that, but they never returned back. These right here are the last photos that were taken of the pair. As you can see in all of the photos, the pair appeared to be having a nice time, taking some normal photos as you would. But then it cut out. Nothing. Radio silence for, well, an entire week. 7 days later, between 1 AM and 4 AM, take a look. These photos found on the pair's phone just containing very weird, abstract photos, weird stuff. But then it got worse. When authorities were searching through the photos, they found a photo of Lizanne, who was one of the girls. And in this photo, someone was holding her head, and there was blood in her hair. Now, what does this mean? We don't really know. 2 months later, they discovered something else. They discovered a pelvis and a foot, and after extensive tests, they discovered that the DNA on here matched that of the girls. So they went from having a nice time, taking great photos, to these extremely disturbing photos that no one knows what they are, to being unalived clearly, but still the full story remains completely unknown. What the hell happened?
Deadliest computer viruses in the world, part 4. This one is called horrorbob.exe, and yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So don't watch this if you get scared easily. So let's open this thing up and we get the usual dialog box. This Trojan is no joke. Do you want to run it? That's what we do out here. First things first, computer restarts. Nothing new here. On boot up, we get stage 1. Background changes to this dripping blood, and this ain't even the tip of the iceberg. Wait a few seconds and you get stage 2. You guessed it. This creepy, crusty SpongeBob window opens up, and it says, SpongeBob is watching you. And also this other pop-up box over here. Let's see what it says. Your Windows has been infected by SpongeBob Horror Trojan 2.0. You cannot delete this Trojan, but you have 2 minutes to use your system. After 2 minutes, your PC will crash with an RSOD, which is a red screen of death. Below that, you got the rules. Pause if you want to read them. Alright, this is where the fun begins. Stage 3. Windows Media Player opens, playing this creepy background music called Cling Clang. Just listen to this. Then we get stage 4. Inverted colors start flashing as the music continues. Moving your mouse causes this glitch effect, which leads to stage 5. Screen starts to melt. Yeah, this is some nightmare fuel right here. Oh, another pop-up. Now you have 1 last minute to use your system. Okay, SpongeBob really ain't messing around, huh? Stage 6, screen shrinks like you're getting hypnotized in Get Out. Keeps getting smaller and smaller until SpongeBob pops back out to the front again. You can move the window around, but it won't get you far. Strap in, because you're in for a ride. Stage 6.5, screen just melts again for a bit. Oh, then we're hit with our final warning. Last 5 seconds to use your system. Okay, Sponge, let's see what you got. It has come. Time over. SpongeBob will now crash your PC forever. Okay. Behold stage 7. Screen fills up with a million red X's as the music fades away. And finally, reboot. Computer restarts and we're met with a red screen of death, which doesn't even exist on Windows. No matter how many times you reboot now, this is all you'll ever see. Your PC ran into a problem that it couldn't handle and now it needs to restart. Stop code SpongeBob is watching you? Never heard of that one before. Game, set, match. This computer is dust for life, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking my closet before I sleep now.
This is a true horrifying story of the tomb of Tutankhamun. I spoke about black magic in many of my episodes. I revealed the terror and the dangers behind its rituals, such as the books Al-Ghazali and Shams al-Ma'arif, the cursed houses, the buried spells, and a lot more. However, the age of when black magic was the biggest, the strongest, and the most dangerous was the age of the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. Black magic back then was nothing compared to what it is today. Allahu A'lam, but from the stories I've heard, I even believe that the jinns were a lot more powerful than what they are today. In Surah Taha, a chapter in the Quran, it talked about black magic and how it was so strange. Black magicians would use jinns to deceive people. They used to throw their ropes on the ground and they would move like snakes. All of these things were made by jinns back in the day of Prophet Musa. Many jinns used to worship these kings and they would provide most of their energies to execute their demands. Tutankhamun is the last of them. He was the last pharaoh of the royal family at the end of the 18th dynasty. These kings were worshipped by jinns, and when they died, their tombs were still protected by jinns. Many people have died trying to open their tombs years after their death. And the reason behind it is these tombs are guarded by black magic. If you go near an untouched tomb from ancient Egypt, you will most probably die before cracking it open. During the grand opening of Tutankhamun's tomb, 13 people have died soon after the ceremony. The archaeologist Howard Carter was the lucky one that opened his tomb. But of course, he died as well a few years after that. Now, Tutankhamun died more than 3,000 years ago. A lot of people tried to open that tomb is because it carried a lot of treasure. The tomb itself was made of gold. And we have reports of people that died only from the 20th century from opening this tomb. But just imagine how many people have died trying to open this tomb throughout these 3,000 years. That's how strong the curse is. The jinns have protected his grave for thousands of years.